We are told that diversity is about inclusion, yet what we often see now feels a bit like replacement. There's a soft propaganda running through Britain today. You see it in adverts, in television shows, in the language of pretty much every institution. It paints an image of a country that doesn't quite exist, an edited, curated Britain designed to make people believe something that simply isn't true. And when someone points this out, you see the outrage machine go into full overdrive. That's exactly what we've seen this week. Parts of the country have spent days in outrage over Reform MP Sarah Pochin. Her crime? Well, she said out loud that she's tired of seeing too many so-called black and brown faces in television adverts. Her comments came through a Talk TV phone-in where she responded off the cuff to the caller who complained about television adverts.
It drives me mad when I see adverts full of black people, full of Asian people, full of, people that basically are anything.
What's wrong with that, Sarah? What's wrong with that?
Well, it doesn't reflect our society, and I feel that your average white person, average white family is like, I agree with you, Stuart, not represented.
So you can dislike her wording, but the reaction to it exposes something a little bit deeper, that we've built a culture where noticing patterns is treated as racist, as prejudice. And even before we get into her actual comments, the hypocrisy around this is just hard to ignore. It's almost comical because progressives and activists, so-called anti-racists, they make these kinds of observations all the time, don't they? You'll hear them complain about too many white people in the royal family, too many white players in the England team, too many white residents in rural England, too many white voices on a panel or in a newsroom.
The Lord President, white. The Lord Justice Clerk, white. Every High Court judge, white. The Lord Advocate, white. The Solicitor General, white. The Chief Constable, white. Every Deputy Chief Constable, white. Every Assistant Chief Constable, white. The Head of the Law Society, white. The Head of the Faculty of Advocates, white. Every Prison Governor, white.
Those comments are seen as brave, honest, even necessary. The kind that will earn praise for being critical or challenging the system. It's funny how noticing one pattern is called awareness, but noticing another is what? Hate. That's the double standard that has just permeated our society, and it's exhausting to watch. The reaction to her comments says everything about where Britain is right now. You can't even question something obvious without being called a bigot. You can disagree with her tone. You can disagree with her phrasing. You can disagree with her choice of words, as probably I do. But none of that changes the fact that the issue that she raised is worth talking about. Everyone wants to perform outrage, desperate to show how good and tolerant they are, instead of asking why this sense of alienation exists in the first place. I think the root issue in this is quite simple. It's not even that people are angry about seeing minorities on TV. Ethnic minorities have always been on TV. People are angry because they're being constantly told what their country should look like. Maybe it's the manipulation. Maybe it's the lies. Maybe it's the constant sense of being managed, being told what to think, what to celebrate, what to feel guilty about. Maybe people are just tired of being lectured by institutions that seem embarrassed by the country they represent. There seems to be a quiet insistence that Britain must be reshaped, rebranded, re-educated. People can feel that, and they resent it. Not because they hate others, but because they hate being lied to and manipulated. If people are obsessed with representation, fine. But it has to be natural, not forced. Moreover, it should reflect the country as it actually is, not what a handful of cultural elites want it to be. We are told that diversity is about inclusion, yet what we often see now feels a bit like replacement. Not in the wild conspiratorial sense, no, but in the very real and symbolic sense. Certain identities are being quietly pushed out, made to feel unwelcome, treated as, reminders of old Britain that has to be corrected and erased. You don't need to be a statistician to see the mismatch. In a country where around 82% of people identify as white British, the Britain we see on screen looks nothing like the one we live in. Turn on the TV and you see casts and couples almost arranged to send this kind of message, of what Britain should look like, not what it actually does look like. In England and Wales, Black Britons make up around 4% of the population, for example, yet they appear in roughly half of all television adverts, for example. And you point this out, then the same defense almost comes back. Yes, but. There's always a yes, but. The goalposts never stop moving, because for some, it's not about equality. It's about power. It's about control. It's about special treatment. So they will say, yes, but. What about off-screen roles? The writers, the directors, the producers, that's still too white. There's only 11% of writers and producers, that are from ethnic minority backgrounds. But minorities, they make up this percent of the population. And you know what? To that I say, so what? You can't have exact equal representation anywhere. It's not possible. People choose different paths, shaped by different interests, skills, not by their identity. Some groups, yes, will always be more present in certain industries, regions, but that's normal. That's not inequality. That's life. Anyway, what we are seeing now is the rise of an accepted prejudice. One that quietly says that, the majority no longer matters. And in this rush to make everyone feel included, white Britons have become the one group that it's socially acceptable to ignore, even mock. The message is clear. Inclusion only works one way. You can see it everywhere. In adverts where the average white family has almost vanished, as if their presence might offend someone. When Sadiq Khan's office shared a photo of a white family with the caption, "This doesn't represent real Londoners," it wasn't an accident. It was a glimpse into how the establishment now thinks. So you may not like Sarah Pochin's words, you can criticize her phrasing if you want, but you cannot dismiss the feeling behind them. That feeling is not rooted in hate, it is rooted in alienation, confusion. What is actually happening? There is a quiet sense that ordinary people, the majority, have been written out of their own story while being told it's all for progress, it's all for the greater common good. You can call her clumsy, but you cannot say she is wrong. What we are watching is not representation, it is conditioning. Something dishonest is happening. And the message is clear. If you do not see yourself in this new version of Britain, then the fault is yours. You are outdated. You are intolerant. You are part of the past that has to be written out. This is important. Pretending that Britain is anything other than majority white country is not progress, is deceitful, because it denies the country's basic makeup, its history, its people, its culture, and it replaces it with a fantasy version of Britain. And this kind of denial does not make minorities safer or more accepted. It just breeds more mistrust, breeds more resentment. You cannot build a strong, unified nation by shaming its majority into silence. That path has never ended well, and it won't end well now.